because I need to share it also with the graduate course. They're going to do the same final assignment. All right, so we're going to talk about real quick, just a quick review of the ABCs of behavior, the antecedents, behavior, consequence process. We're going to walk through that again, and then we'll talk about the FBA final. All right. So remember that the A stands for antecedents. And there are two types of antecedents that we've talked about before. There are the setting antecedents, the ones that happen and kind of set the child up for inappropriate behaviors. And then there are the triggering antecedents. These right here on this screen would be what would be considered the triggering antecedents. We have control as teachers over the triggering antecedents. We rarely have control over the setting antecedents. So that's really important for us to remember. So for example, if you have a child in your class, you give them an academic task and they get up from the task and walk around the room, could be the behavior that it triggered. So we need to figure out why they're walking around the room and why the academic task triggered that behavior. So we look through, these are the antecedents over here in the pink, and these are the resulting behaviors. Another list of those, let's see, they're independent work or transitions, maybe unstructured time, and this triggers stuff too. Those are just arbitrary antecedents and behaviors. Then the B is the behavior, whatever the behavior is, and that we need to operationally define whatever the behavior is. And always, after a behavior, there's something that occurs. So that's the C. So the A is the antecedent, the trigger for the behavior. The B is the behavior, and the C is the consequence, or the thing that happens right after the behavior. So you can say with consequence, it is the exact same thing that is like it could be a reinforcer, especially if it maintains that behavior over time, then that consequence reinforces that behavior. So when we look at the reinforcers, that's these things in the pink over here. If the student's given a timeout and he's not engaging with anybody, it could be that if that maintains that behavior over time, then that means that maybe he's engaging in that behavior because he's trying to escape. If he gets attention, that could be that he's wanting attention or trying to obtain attention. So those are some of the things that we look at to understand the function of behavior. But the A is the antecedent, the B is the behavior, and the C is the consequence. Okay? And then, so we look at these things to see, is it something where that students wanting to get or something that students want to avoid, escape, obtain or escape. So that is how we always figure those things out. Functions for most partner behavior are, this is a short list of those. Most often kids will get, if they're wanting to get something, it's one of three things. It's either to get peer attention, get adult attention, or get a tangible thing. If it's escape, they're trying to escape sensory stimulation, or escape a difficult activity, or escape a specific person, or escape that kind of thing. So those are the typical functions. So that's what this screen talks about. All right, so as we look at this, this is a chain of behavior, the behavior chain. The antecedent is working in a difficult subject. The student throws paper and yells, and they're sent to the office where they're given no attention. We can figure out very likely that with that behavior chain, because of this consequence here, that was an escape motivated behavior, and this will maintain that behavior over time. I hope that makes sense. Here's another example. The antecedent is a large group activity. A behavior is where the student maybe makes a joke or something like that. And then the consequence is where the peers laugh and the teacher gives attention. And then see that student, you can interpret that as the students wanting to obtain attention. So that's the behavior chain, and the consequence reinforces that behavior. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So determining functions of behavior, we look at what the consequence is first, and then we talk to other people like the parents or the teachers of the student, talk to the student, and then we also observe the student in their natural environment where the behavior is most likely to occur. That's really important to do that in that environment where the behavior is most likely to occur, because that will pretty much tell us what that function of the behavior is. So that's really important to think through. All right. Now then, what we want to do is we want the student to engage in a different behavior that is not socially unacceptable. So for example, if they're wanting to get a teacher attention rather than yell out, we want them to raise their hand or whatever the appropriate attention-seeking device is. If they're wanting to escape a problem, then we need to figure out how they can work on the problem so they can finish the task and move on from there. So replacement behaviors are very important. We need to teach those, and then they should serve the same function as the problem behavior did before. Now, I just want to remind you guys again about reinforcement and punishment, that I'm going to walk through this piece right here. A short word about reinforcement and punishment. Remember, reinforcement is something that increases or maintains a behavior. And there are two types. Positive reinforcement means to apply something or add something to increase or maintain a behavior. Negative reinforcement is to remove something to increase or maintain a behavior. So that's important to remember. In punishment, we have the same types of punishment, but punishment is to reduce a behavior. And there are two types of punishment: positive punishment, to apply something or add something to decrease a behavior, and negative punishment, to remove something to decrease a behavior. So we sort of talked about that. So negative reinforcement, let me jump back to that. Your mom is, and you guys, if you're home, you might be getting this at home. Your mom is nagging you to pick up your dirty dishes and go rinse them out in the sink. So she nags you, and you get up, you go take the dishes in there and you rinse them out and put them in the sink. That removed that nagging behavior, but it increased your putting the dishes and rinsing them out in the sink behavior. That is negative reinforcement. It increased the behavior. It might have seemed like it's a punishment, but it's not. It's a negative reinforcement. Remember that the terms positive, negative in this situation do not mean good or bad. They mean to apply or to remove. And remember that negative reinforcement is not interchangeable with punishment. It's not the same. So if we are meaning punishment, we need to say punishment. We don't need to say negative reinforcement because it's not the same. Okay, I have beaten that dead horse enough. Okay, moving on. Reinforcers are multiple things. They could be from anything from tangible things to tokens to social, attaboys, hugs, to natural reinforcement. Somebody learns to ride a bike. Riding the bike is naturally reinforcing for the student, for the individual. Learning to do addition and subtraction is naturally reinforcing. Learning to read is naturally reinforcing. So those, we try to do as much natural reinforcers as possible. But we will have to use some others like tokens or tangibles or social. Try to make it as realistic as possible. To make reinforcers much more effective, you need to apply them immediately after the individual has done the behavior, frequently, one-to-one, before moving off from a one-to-one, with enthusiasm. Say, you did a great job doing those, your twos. Fantastic. Remember, you need to name the behavior when you do it. You need to look them in the eye. You need to describe the behavior and give some variety at times. Give a high five, give an attaboy, give a fist bump. I know that handshakes are good right now, but you know what I mean. All right. Now remember that when we looked at behaviors too, that skills deficits are a big deal. If a student doesn't know how to engage in something, you need to teach that skill for that student. So that's a big deal. So when we look at components of good behavior support program, it needs to increase the desired behavior. It needs to change the antecedents, what triggers the behavior. It needs to provide positive consequences for the desired behavior and minimize the inappropriate behavior. So you're, in a sense, you're punishing by not reinforcing the inappropriate behavior. That's decreasing it. And you're reinforcing, increasing the appropriate behavior. And you always pair a punisher with a reinforcer to decrease problem behavior and increase negative behaviors. Okay. So this is a chain of behavior. You see at the top there, a difficult assignment, the student throws paper. There's the consequence, it was to gain attention. So if we modify the assignment from a difficult individual assignment, make it a group assignment, they automatically get the attention because they're working together to complete the assignment. If they complete the assignment, they get attention from the teacher, they get attention from the group, they get a good grade, the attaboys, that reinforces that good student completion of work. Make sense? We could change the consequence, but it really is not going to work as well as changing the antecedent, not as quick. But it will work over time. You're extinguishing the inappropriate behavior, increasing the appropriate behavior over time. So it's just going to take time, a longer amount of time to complete that. All right. And then there's teaching a replacement behavior instead of the inappropriate throwing of paper. So those are some behavior change that we could do. Functions and strategies we can look at up here at the top. You look at a function of, say, for example, getting access to a desired activity or a tangible. The strategy might be one of these two. For a function where it's escape, you might try some of these strategies. For a function that is to get attention from peers or teachers, you might try these strategies. So these are some strategies you could try. These are tried and shown to be very effective strategies to work with kids for those particular functions of behavior. Okay, so sensory stimulation, this might be some strategies for that. That's one that's kind of harder to find. If it's a sensory stim kind of thing, it's harder to determine those. And you need to have have plan B because plan A might not work all the time. So what happens if plan A doesn't work? You try plan B. Because always with working with people, what can go wrong will go wrong. We need to be prepared for that. And then we need to collect data to make sure that we have made progress in increasing that appropriate behavior over time. Okay, and modify the intervention if need be. So pretty much that was a review. Anybody have any? Let me see if I can open this up. I'm going to unmute. If you need to, would like to share, is you pretty much feel like that was a good review?
Oh, you got to read last. Yes. Yeah, I got some Puerto Rican stuff there too. This right here? Yeah.
All right, so now I'm going to mute you all again, and now we're going to talk about the final FBA activity. I already have it posted in your in module 5. It's called the Final FBA assignment. So you guys can be working on it at any time. There's a lot of information. There's some documents you need to download that'll give you materials for it. That way you have plenty of time. It's not due until May 8th at 5 o'clock. So you have time to ask me questions, get some clarifying answers, etc. So we're going to walk through this, the final FBA activity, what you need to know and how to complete it. So you will need to download the following items from D2L. They're in module 5. They're in the, let me see if I can get to the page, show you where it is in, let me go to the right class. And we'll go to the content page. Module 5 is putting it all together, and it's down at the bottom is the FBA assignment. There's the instructions, but these are hyperlinks to download the documents here, or you could download the documents here. But you'll need to download them because there is a long case study in the final FBA activity for SPED 453 R, or for the SPED 6013 folks, it would be for SPED 6013R. So you would go there, you download your documents there, and start working on the your final piece. Oop, that was the PowerPoint. Let's get it back up. Okay, so let's, the next slide on this. The assignment is you're going to need to review the final FBA activity. There's a case study of George P. Read through the case study, and then you will need to do the following. There's 2 weeks of data collected in a data collection chart, and the chart is in the case study. And then you're to complete a functional behavior assessment doing the following steps. Choose one of the 4 behaviors that's listed in the case study. And then you will, there's a problem behavior pathway analysis. You will complete that, kind of fill in the steps on that. This should make it more simple. You fill in the steps, and it'll lead you to the final product. And then there's problem behavior pathway analysis thing. Then there's a competing behavior pathway process, which is building the behavior support plan. Then you need to complete the building support plan form. Then you develop a behavioral lesson plan. I'm talking behavioral lesson plan rather than behavioral intervention plan. they're basically interchangeable. A lesson plan actually allows for you to teach new behaviors to the student rather than just focuses on consequence and behavior. So that's just a different piece. There is you'll need to, in the behavior lesson plan, you need to come up with an antecedent strategy, a behavioral change strategy, and a consequence strategy to teach the student how to use. You'll need to transfer that pertinent from this information to a behavioral intervention plan summary form. It's there also. And then 3 references have a separate reference sheet that talks about, refers back to the interventions that you're using, the 3 different interventions. Okay? This is what a problem behavior pathway analysis of the problem behavior looks like. You figure in what the setting antecedents are, what the triggering antecedents are, what the problem behavior is, and then what was the function of that behavior? What do you determine it to be? And you need to do that for whatever behavior that you're working with. So you see that breaks it down into steps for you. Gives you the setting and the antecedent and the behavior and the consequence. Then the behavior path, there's an example of this. You have Trish B, the setting event, let me go back, is playground during free time. The triggering antecedent is Trish sees her friend or a student named Marcia with a class football. Trish wants that football, wants to play catch, but she wants to play catch with Ray rather than Marcia. So she goes over to Marcia and says, give me the football. Marcia says no, but Trish uses aggression to get the ball away from her. And then Trish then gets the football, plays catch with Ray, and then Marcia goes and pouts and doesn't say anything. So I'm going to open up this for comments. What do you guys think is the behavior for Trish? What's the function of behavior?
I mean, it seems doable.
Or to avoid something? How many of you would say it's to get the football?
I think it's to play with Trish.
Nope. It's
no, it's to play with
Ray.
It's to get the football from Marcia. That was the trigger for the behavior. So the behavior, so the maintaining consequences was she got the football, and then she was reinforced because she had the football and she was doing what she wanted to do, and nobody stopped her from doing it. See how that reinforces that behavior?
Yeah.
Function was to get something, get the item. Even if it was to play with Ray, it was to get, it was to obtain. Make sense?
That was the action, yeah.
All right, so let's move on. So this is the competing behavior pathway building support plan. Again, you write in up here what the setting events, triggering event, problem behavior was, and the maintaining consequence and the function. Then down here, you try to brainstorm what kind of things you could do differently in the setting event that would cause the chain of behavior to be different. What things you could do with a triggering antecedent that would cause the chain of behavior to be different. What things you could do different replacement-wise that cause the chain of behavior to be different. And then what consequence-wise you could do to cause the behavior chain to be different. So let's look at an example. There's Trish. There's the, rather than free play, it's supervised play. So that's a setting event. And then you can see that what happens. So you're going to do supervised play instead of free play. The problem behavior is mitigated because you change the antecedents and etc. So that's, you're brainstorming those processes through. And here's Maurice, a very similar thing. So these are all in that document for you guys, so you can look at these and understand the whole process there. This again is just a blank competing behavior pathways form. That's for you to use on you fill out the setting event, the triggering event, what the desired behavior is, what the problem behavior is, and what is an acceptable alternative. And then what would be maintaining consequences for all of those. This is what is happening, but how would you keep those from those happening differently? Minimizing this and maximizing that. All right. Then down here are some ideas that you can use to help you build this. This is just a different viewpoint of the same thing. It's a different form of the same thing. On the behavioral lesson plan, these could be used interchangeably. Again, the lesson plan focuses on the teaching behaviors rather than the reinforcement of behaviors. So that's the big difference, is we're looking at it from the antecedent teaching side rather than from just the reinforcement contingency side. This is the behavior intervention plan summary. And what you'll see here is the goals that you're working on, what the interventions were, what person, paraprofessional, teacher, etc., would be the implementer. The last three columns are for evaluation. That's later on. After you've used the intervention, you won't be doing anything with that piece. But this is, you'll just transfer the information into these here. So you want an antecedent, a behavior, and a consequence. There's to be three boxes for the behaviors: antecedent, behavior, consequence. Any questions? Yes, sir? You think you got this? You'll look at the stuff, review the information, and then email me or call me on my cell phone. I think I've given you my cell number. If not, I'll give it to you in an email again. But
I have a question.
sure.
How much is this this thing that you added? How much is it
It's the final.
worth?
And I'm
So
not,
how much is it worth, like percentage wise?
it's 100%, 100 points.
Okay.
It's the final?
It's the final.
Oh, okay.
So it's your final project. You know, you guys that have had me before know that I don't give a test, I give a project. This is your final project, and it's with 100 points.
Okay, now I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we have access to those like things you had on each slide?
Yeah, I sent you the slide.
Okay.
I sent that to you in an email tonight, and I'll post it in your D2L also.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Sure. So you'll have all the information you need. I will give you some other forms. I have some forms I've compiled, interventions for antecedent interventions, behavioral interventions, and consequence intervention. So I'll dig that up, find that in my hard drive, and I'll send that to you guys too. Okay, anything else? Is that good? So this is a project. If you guys want to contact each other and talk to each other about it, you can work together somewhat, but your work still needs to be your own in your own voice. Make sense?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? This is a short class tonight.
No.
Okay. Now, next week, it'll probably be a little bit longer, but we will talk about, I want to get into serious behavior issues where students become significantly physically aggressive and what you guys can do to minimize those behaviors. All right? Okay, you guys stay healthy, wash your hands, get chapped hands, and practice social distancing skills. And hopefully we'll see each other face to face someday soon. All right, talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.